All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning if you're in the Western Hemisphere, and good evening or early morning anywhere else. Welcome back. It's been a little while since we've thrown our last roundtable conversation. It's appreciate you showing up on a day that's not Tuesday, and trying to get back on a regular cadence for this. So with that in mind, we'll quickly go around the room, quick introductions, and after that, we'll jump right into our topic of the day, which is a lot to do with standing up multiple robots, interacting with other robot companies, interacting with various customers and systems in various locations. I think a lot of us nowadays, as this industry has started to mature, are experiencing this more and more. So I'll kick it off, and the way introductions go relatively smoothly is give a quick introduction to yourself and then call out the next person who hasn't gone yet. Joe Wiechek, in my day job, I'm the Director of Technical Operations at a company called Outrider, which automates the movement of trailers and distribution yards. And I'm also the co-founder of Robot Operations Group. Christian.
My name is Christian Fritz. I'm the founder and CEO of Transitive Robotics, developing software components for robot fleet management for those of us who want to build our own fleet management system instead of using, for instance, In Orbit, which is also great. And I'm passing it over to Florian.
Very smoothly done, Christian. I'm Florian, one of the co-founders here at In Orbit, and also Joe's partner in crime here at the Robot Operations Group. How about you, Phil? It's good to see you again.
Yeah, hey, good to see you too. I'm Phil Rohn. I run a small consultant engineering services company in the robot space, primarily robot software and DevOps developer productivity. Yeah, it's great to be back. And I'm going to pass over to Kun.
Hi, everyone. Good. I'm Kun. Right now I'm in Silicon Valley, and I'm a co-founder of the tech company of self-driving car. And right now I'm looking for some robotics technology and try to build my own robot. And this is my first time to join this event, so glad to meet you guys. Yeah. Next, Eden.
Hi everyone, I'm Adam Green. I'm living in Scotland actually, and it's just stopped raining, which is fantastic news. I work for Ocado, and we are the world's largest online-only grocery retailer, and we sell the Ocado Smart platform to other grocery retailers around the world. Nicholas.
Adam, I hope you enjoy the next 15 minutes of non-rain.
Yeah, I can see the clouds coming again already, actually. I'm making the most of it.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, I've got some camera issues here. I tried to turn it on. Doesn't look like it's coming on. So, but I'm Nicholas Kirsch. I'm a director of software engineering at Omnicell. Omnicell has this vision of the autonomous pharmacy, and so I am at Omnicell developing new robotics and automation solutions to help them enable that vision. Going toward the end makes it harder to pick someone that hasn't already gone yet. But F. Lowry, I see you're on.
Yeah, hi, I'm Farrah Laurie. I'm a student at Georgia Tech, and I saw your group online, so I figured it looked like a good thing to attend and get involved with.
Welcome.
Thank you.
The list is getting short. I believe Kunal, Frederick, and Rick haven't gone. If I've missed anybody else, I apologize. So your choice. Who you want to call on? All right, we'll go to Frederick. Frederick, please. Frederick, you went off mute, but we can't quite hear you.
Maybe audio.
All right, Frederick. Yeah, Kunal.
Hey, yeah. So this is my first time joining online, but I joined in person in like 2021, I want to say. So it's been a long time, but I saw Florian at Automate, so I wanted to come and say hi again here. So cool. Great to see everybody.
Good to see you. All right, Rick.
Hi, my name is Rick. I'm co-founder of Spatial Robotics, and we do primarily software for robotics. Who's the next person or the last person?
Frederick, if his microphone works, and if not, we'll jump right into it. All right, Frederick. Hopefully, we can hear from you a little bit later today. All right. So our topic of
Aldous.
Oh, I did forget Aldous. Sorry, I gave him. I was chatting to him earlier, and I totally forgot. My apologies.
So close to avoiding.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Aldous. I'm the founder and CEO of Miley Robots. We are based in Copenhagen, Denmark. We do fleet management for mobile robots as well. So nice to be here again.
All right, welcome back, and welcome to folks who are first time here. All right, so to kick it off, those of you who have been around ROG for 6 years now, Florian, have seen a lot of progress in the industry in terms of both customers becoming significantly more educated, as well as wanting more solutions to the various problems they know are able to be automated. And you also see in the robot provider space, both people who are working on the end solution, people who are working on integration, software components that stitch them together, as well as those providing, services, deployment, things like that. And we're really at a point now, in my opinion, and I think where Florian and I came up with this topic is our customers are no longer going to one vendor. They're going to multiple vendors. And as we see, they often are running integrations with different, or demos or pilots with different solutions at the same time. Or when we get into production, they're running different autonomous solutions in the same environment. This leads to its challenges. It also leads to potential successes. So I'd like to start off kind of on a, I'm the operations guy. I've always had a joke of, I see everything that can potentially go wrong, which is partially the job to prevent those things from going wrong. But let's start a bit on the other side of the fence. And, I know, Florian, Aldous, Christian, you probably have some success here, but I'm also curious about others. When the success stories, does anyone have go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So the kick it off. The success stories of who here has a tale of deploying into an environment with a diverse set of robots, a diverse set of autonomous solutions, and how did you work through those initial integration challenges to give your customers actual success and get through the roadblocks? We can spend a lot of time working on roadblocks. I don't necessarily want to start on roadblocks. I'm sure we'll get there over the next 50 minutes. But let's start painting this with a positive brush. I've stumped everybody. Florian, I might have to call on you since I know that you're deep in the middle of this space.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. I'm always hesitant to be the first one to speak because we want to hear many other voices as well. Yeah, I think we've seen this pretty consistent progression for companies as they embrace this new generation of autonomous robots. I'm gonna do something that hopefully is not considered a party foul, which is I wanted to show one slide. We usually don't do slides here, but I think this one will help us talk through this. Give me 1 second. All right. So I think what we've seen with the adoption of robotics is we see, I think pretty much everyone starts with a single robot, a proof of concept, maybe a pilot. And I think everyone here knows that you can get stuck in pilot purgatory for a long time. But let's say that one robot did its job, you're like, okay, if one robot can do the job, then maybe more robots can do the same job, but more, right? And then you get to this kind of like, okay, great. If this worked at this location, maybe we can do it at these other locations. And maybe until now, you're still kind of like, you found this one task, right, that you needed automated, and you're just propagating that. So that's kind of like the first stage of scale. I think what's interesting is once you get to one task was automated successfully, most people are thinking, okay, what else, right? What else can I automate successfully? And if you think about pretty much any large-scale operation, whether it's a third-party logistics company or a hospital, I think in an earlier session here we had the Mayo Clinic, and they talked about different types of robots for different purposes that they're exploring. So now you get into this kind of like, you have multiple robots and multiple sites, but now you're tackling multiple tasks. When you do multiple tasks, chances are you need a different vendor. So for example, the company that makes robots for cleaning the floor usually isn't the same company that handles, let's say, inventory in a retail store. Sometimes they're combined, but a lot of times these are specialized. Or likewise, if you're running a warehouse, the giant robots that work in the yard moving trailers, just a completely made up example, they're not the robots that you want moving cases inside the warehouse, pretty obviously. So then you get into this kind of like, the first step is coexistence. Let's not run into each other. So a lot of companies that we talk to are dealing with intersections where they have different robots from different vendors going through the intersection. And let's just say most of the time it's not pretty. Or you might want the next level, which is coordination. And to me, coordination is about, maybe it's just as simple as taking turns. So if you're cleaning an aisle in a supermarket, maybe that's not the best time to start running inventory or restocking. And I think the highest form of this that we've seen, and I think this is really kind of at the edge of what people are doing today, is this idea of collaboration, where in order to complete a mission, you need more than one robot, possibly from different vendors, to actually work together to get the job done. So I think we're seeing examples of all of this. It's a little bit of a funnel, in that there's lots of companies on the left side of the slide, trying different robots for different purposes. I think it's the most advanced companies that are really at the far right and trying to do this kind of multi-robot, multi-vendor orchestration. So I didn't technically answer your question, Joe, with a specific example. I was trying to be a little bit more generic.
Yeah, so let me ping on that a little bit, Florian. And one of the good dynamics I think for the first timers here is ROG has both the software vendors, we've got end users, and we've got robot providers. And as I've spent my entire career in robotics on the provider side, not the integration or the end user side. And so my one thing that I would ask the group, and Florian can answer this, but I'm hoping there's some experience around the group as well to chime in here, is from the robot vendor side, multiple companies, you're so focused on getting your application to work that this idea of collaboration, the interoperability conversation that we've talked about a number of times, it's kind of second fiddle. It's not something that is our primary motivation, and unless a large customer forces our hand, we don't necessarily want to focus our probably limited development resources on it. So have you seen, has anyone either voluntarily on the provider side either voluntarily embraced the interop challenges, or has your hand been forced by a large customer, or is it something that is a roadmap item that is, when we get to this level of functionality of our autonomy, then we will start integrating? And there's challenges to any of those paths too. So I'm curious about folks' experiences, either having the person with a large checkbook make you do this, or voluntarily doing this, knowing that it'll grease the skids later on. Aldous.
I could probably microphone's working okay?
Yes.
Super. Yeah, I could probably jump in on that with the interoperability part and on the adoption of robots. Want to bring up that it gets overlooked, the interoperability factor, and it might not be sort of 100 robots from 5 different vendors. It could be something so mundane as 5 AMRs just taking material handling and introducing a cleaning robot to the site in the warehouse. And that interoperability suddenly becomes a huge brick for the window for them, where they realize, oh, wait, I'm now disrupting traffic of this introduction of the cleaning robot, because it's obviously going to be out running. So the interoperability part, I think, it has been forced upon us, but again, this is what we're trying to solve for our solution at Miley. But it's become more aware suddenly for a lot of users from the small end to already the enterprise level. Didn't really have a follow-up on that point. It was just more the topic that interoperability is not something that's seen as only large-scale fleets. It can even be the smaller scale.
Yeah.
And it could be also in terms of this, all right, I'm adopting a new robot for a specific use case application. Yeah, we'll test it out in the proof of concept of our current fleet. But then that still comes up like, oh, we're facing difficulties just trying to get the proof of concept working on the floor.
Yeah, and I can tell you, as long as 7 years ago, back before any of these conversations even took off, there's a guy who works for Florian now, John Simmons, who was at Bossa Nova at the time, and I was at Brain. And we would occasionally have instances in retail stores where the cleaning robot would come straight up against the shelf scanning robot, and they'd get completely stuck, and someone would have to go and manually intervene. And customers who expect an autonomous solution and then have to walk, a couple 100 meters every single time that their buzzer goes off and says, we need help, that doesn't endear customers to your autonomous solution, is a easy way to put it.
I think I would go even harder on that point, that like we've seen, like lots of people, it's not highly publicized, but in maybe over a drink, people will share that they've had collisions between robots of different vendors, or they've had people driving vehicles, and I think the classic is somebody leaving the tines on the forklift at a height that is not very friendly to the robot, and the robot oftentimes can't even see, right? So I think when something like that happens, I think it reflects poorly on those vendors, but also on the industry as a whole. It reduces trust, with good reason, right? Because they're actually messing up. And I think there's a lot of focus, which is good, on the industry on getting my robot to do its thing. But the robots don't operate in a vacuum. And the end users, they don't really care about how cleverly designed your perception stack is. They care that they get the job done and they don't mess up your workflow.
Yeah, that second topic, Florian, is a topic I think over beverages more than the recorded online meeting. But Christian, go ahead.
So perception is a good keyword for what I wanted to ask. So when I hear robot interoperability, my mind tends to go towards, vehicle to vehicle communication, right? Like that's what it would be called in the car world, meaning some sort of protocol where they can coordinate. And we all know the challenges of that, right? Vendors don't necessarily adopt that, have different APIs and so forth. But perception is sort of now, of course, on everybody's mind, especially nowadays where everybody who's not in robotics talks about robots as if they were all humanoid robots. So for those of you, I'm not part of that, but those of you who have worked in fleet coordination between different vendors, to what extent is it actually fruitful to try approaches that do not rely on any sort of communication between the robots? Meaning that, so I mean, the collision is a good example, right? Like the reason why robots from different vendors collide with one another is because most navigation algorithms are actually not very good with moving obstacles, right? They have a very hard time, or a lot, at least best practice is not necessarily to extrapolate where people are going or other robots are going. But you could handle it like that, right? I mean, humans clearly do that like that, right? The reason why these robots don't collide with humans is because the human is smarter and they will step out of the way. So I don't know whether anybody here has experience with that, but I'd really like to sort of get a handle on this, whether it's still best practice to try to make them talk to each other or just make them smart enough not to run into moving things.
Florian?
I was allowing for somebody else to also raise their hand, but this is a topic I care about. I think there's a little bit of perhaps a misconception in the talk to each other, because you get into this, Babel-like situation, and maybe one day every robot will speak Esperanto or whatever, but maybe not, right? That's not, the world has gone. So I think what you need is a balance between each robot's kind of like autonomy, right, to navigate to where it needs to go, with some traffic rules, right, or traffic management. And you can think of it as the traffic cop that signals which car should go when there's, let's say, an accident or a choke point, or air traffic controller. There's lots of analogies that you can use where you still have, again, airplane pilots don't talk to every other airplane pilot, right? That would be crazy. Hey, where are you at? Hey, I'm here. That would never work. So I think what we need is something that balances the local autonomy of a robot with something that has a more global view of what's happening, let's say, in a location. And I think different people have taken different approaches. So if you think of something like VDA 50/50, goes in one extreme, which is reduce as much as possible the autonomy of each robot, and then just basically everything gets tightly coordinated, which I think works great with maybe more deterministic workflows, right? Where you need this engine part here within a 2-second window, or it's going to screw up your production line. But in other less structured environments, like some of the ones that we've discussed, from a warehouse to a hospital to a retail store, you really need the robots to manage some of that complexity on their own locally. And an intersection, or like we do this demo here, the robot space, where you have one robot coming from one side of a door and another robot from another vendor coming from another side of the door. So people tend not to use X-ray sensors because that would be bad. So you can't really know just trusting your sensors, what's on the other side. Maybe a less dramatic example is, you're coming to an intersection, but you can't really see around the corner. So you really need something higher that can, the marketing people would call it, see around corners.
Yeah, we're getting there. Yeah, Florian, I want to play off on that a little bit from the robot provider side, where you talked about standardization, and you've used the phrase many times of having the knives in your back around standardization. By the way, I realize you're on another committee now, so congratulations. But I don't think you're going to have, right now from the provider side, I don't think you're going to have the majority of companies in the space today sign up voluntarily for a standard around this. But the flip side is, I think their hands can be forced. And, people have heard me say for a long time, cattle, not pets. From where I sit, from trying to deploy robots, from putting them out in the field, I want them all to be as uniform as possible. I want to be able to monitor them all the exact same way. I want the minimal configuration difference from site to site or from customer to customer. And so I would much rather sign up for one traffic control system than have customer A have VDA 5050 and customer B have the mass robotics interop standard and customer C have something proprietary to customer C's global operations, because that's what customer C does. And so I think we talked 5 years ago about an inflection point in robotics, and you see a ton of robotics companies now. I think we're at a different type of inflection point where you're going to see some not shrinkage of companies, but you're going to see a lot of companies get tighter, more tightly looped together, potentially some mergers happening around companies, acquisitions. And I think the people who are going to come out the other side are the ones who are going to successfully figure out, how do you satisfy the needs of working with heterogeneous fleets and a variety of different solutions, autonomous solutions in a space. But it's going to be the companies that can figure out how to do that cost effectively and have minimal variation in what they sell and what they provide, compared to the folks doing one-off development changes because they're stuck in pilot purgatory, like you said earlier, which leads to a different conversation as well. But I kind of want to open that thought up. And especially, I know we've got some other folks here doing robot deployments on our side. Are you finding yourselves doing more one-off kind of, this customer needs this feature, or are you able to stick to a roadmap better than, are you able to successfully stick to a roadmap and sell to your customers, this feature set, this roadmap, this development timeline is what's going to give you this value, which also provides us this value to be able to efficiently scale this thing and give you the best quality robot we can? Nicholas, you look deep in thought. I'm gonna ping you to see if you have any thoughts on this, just to throw some other people here for some other people.
Because it's kind of a no, right? Where it's like, I don't know. It's always hard, right? The more custom the application is, the less broad you can apply it to other people. For this conversation, a lot of my past experience with autonomous mobile robots and mobile manipulation robots is a lot more relevant. Today, being an Omnicell, it's similar because they're trying to solve the logistics problem inside of hospitals. So it's kind of a subset of what you would see within a logistics warehouse. But the problems are very different. So yeah, I think we're kind of at Omnicell at the point of trying to figure out, there are some robotics automation we can tackle ourselves, and there's other ones we can't, right? We are not an AMR company. So we plan to potentially in the future, right? Maybe we use AMRs, maybe that becomes part of the solution. And then how do we incorporate that into our existing, column static solutions? So we have robotic cells that pick and place medications for order fulfillment, essentially, right? How do we tie into AMRs in the future? I think a lot of people being somebody that came through the development side, I have a better understanding of this, but a lot of people at the more executive level, right, the people writing the checks, to them, it's always, well, there's just an API, right? Or everything is plug and play. I went and I talked to this AMR company and they told me it was plug and play. It just works, right? And that's always a red flag because it doesn't. It is plug and play if your application is perfectly identical to the situation where you're deploying it, right? So if I take an AMR, any AMR that has been successfully deployed to a warehouse and say, I'm now going to put that in a hospital, it's not plug and play, right? Immediately. And so I think there's a need for interoperability, but there's also kind of this, but how do I manage the exceptions? Because the exceptions are what kill the business case, right? It's great that you've shown me you can deploy this in a warehouse. Hospitals aren't too dissimilar, but now I've got to deal with elevators. I have to get an AMR up the elevator to the units of the hospital to deliver those medications. Every elevator is going to be different at every single hospital, and they know that it's not such a quick and easy thing to program and put in. And so for me, it's always like, yes, interoperability, right? Be able to work with any platform, regardless of what kind of AMR, who the AMR provider is, be able to use the right AMR for the solution, right? You guys kind of talked about they come in different shapes and sizes and different capabilities. And being able to use all of them and not care what they're doing, right, deep underneath is really important. But there's always the exceptions, and kind of how do we handle the exceptions and do that in a way where we can actually do it at scale, right? I don't need to just do it at one hospital. I've got to do it at 100 hospitals, thousands of hospitals. Otherwise, what's my business case?
Yeah, and these are challenges, especially as I'm dropping things. It takes a certain kind of intestinal fortitude at a certain point, depending on your company's finances, to hold the line on that, right? You have someone who waves a big check. I said this a little earlier, and all of a sudden it's very easy to go down that path where you don't really return from it. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts, where all of a sudden you start to do you're not going to get to thousands, because all of a sudden you're going to cap yourself at 50 or 100 just to sell those 50 or 100. And maybe you can leverage that to build your next 500 and sell your next 500 and develop those next 500. But you're always going to have to support those 50. And then someone who sits in the chair running the fleet is going to, be a little bit miffed with the decision maker for the rest of time, because they have to support these 50 unicorns. Christian.
Yeah, so maybe not perfectly on spot with the question, but what Nicholas was talking about brings up an interesting question, which is often also comes up in the context of interoperability, which is interoperation with the infrastructure, right? So at Savioke, Nicholas, I'm assuming you know about Savioke now, Relay Robotics. We built robots for hotels and hospitals, and I had the dubious honor of writing a lot of the elevator integrations. And it is exactly like Nicholas says, every elevator is different. And on top of that, every elevator has multiple versions of API if they have an API. So it's sort of a never-ending story of keeping up with that. But I was wondering whether others here have sort of made any sort of experience with integrating with infrastructure where the agency is slightly different, right? When we're talking about robot interoperability, we assume that every robot is sort of a decision maker on its own, and then either through centralized communication through traffic control or vehicle-to-vehicle communication or line of sight, whatever, they make a decision. But it's different when you want to integrate with another system. Obviously, this then also gets relevant when you want to integrate with other automations like automated shelves, which is roughly how Omnicell, I'm assuming works. So I don't know whether anybody here has made any sort of experience on that front that they can share. I mean, I can share that mine was very painful, but that's not sharing too much.
Bill.
Yeah, Christian, just to add to this, not that I have solutions, but I was just going to, instead of making you all feel bad, that it's also hard for humans. When you guys are talking about, oh, the robots collided, how many times did you walk down the street that you like both step to the same side and then the other side you try? So even our human collision avoidance algorithms mess up. And I'm also reminded about elevators. When my kids were really a little younger, we went and they wanted to push the elevator buttons and they'd push the number. And some numbers light up and that's the button. And sometimes the number is next to the button. So all of these things that you're describing are also problems for regular humans. So maybe we shouldn't feel so bad, but that's also something to remind your customers when they're asking you to do this thing. Oh, it's so easy. It's just an elevator. And then, it's how many different kinds of elevators have you ever pushed the wrong part in an elevator, and now you have to figure out that I didn't actually push a button. Yeah, just wanted to throw that in there, that humans struggle with these too.
Yeah, the simple solutions, you can just do this is never the phrase, why don't you just, is something that I think we should all put on t-shirts, and because it never is as simple as it is to say. As someone, as adults who have learned in ways that we can't even comprehend, I'm sure there are neuroscientists who can, things that come simple to us now, like Phil, you were mentioning your kids, it's not simple. There's a lot of corner cases, and heuristics or computer vision or machine learning algorithms are catching up, but it's not easy or cheap. Go ahead, Florian.
So I wanted to poll the group here. We have, so one of the things we do is we work with different companies in the ecosystem to showcase some of these collaborations. I could, if there's interest, do a very short live demo of multiple robots working together, infrastructure, like a 5-minute thing, just to motivate discussion. But maybe use the reactions to let me know if you heart it, or maybe do the open mouth or the crying thing.
While we're waiting on those reactions, got a couple of thumbs up. Christian, to your point, this might be giving a little bit too much away, but interacting with infrastructure, a lot of times the most common one that I saw in two-dimensional indoor navigation is automatic doors. And we made a decision at some point, and I think this has since changed, where it was, let's just try to get lucky and hope that we can trigger that sensor and hope that our robot doesn't stop from the door before the sensor is triggered, and then that the door doesn't close before we clear any obstacle that may have occurred, and then proceed through the door. Is marginally successful, as you might expect when your plan is to try and get lucky.
Yeah, we did automated doors at Savioke. Those we had a good handle on, but only because we provided our own automation, right? Like there we said, oh, you want that door automated? Sure, we'll IoT it, essentially, which is also the fallback approach for elevators, except that with elevators later, TK and Otis and Kone, they all came out with their own APIs, and that made life easier and harder, less predictable, but cheaper in some sense when they were able to do that. Doors we didn't have too much trouble with. We did have trouble with doors where, so we literally had, like, there's the automated doors where you batch, right? They are not just an automated door, but they're also an access control, right? So in hospitals, we saw that with pharmacies sometimes. So you had to hold your badge to a card reader, and then the door would unlock and open. And so with one of our deployments, we literally put like the badge in the shoulder of the robot, and then it became a navigation challenge of sort of rubbing the shoulder against the door, against the reader, and then running through it. So those things are typically okay. Elevators are a whole different game, especially because you have to write it with humans, and then they have their own sort of etiquette.
Just don't look at each other. All right, Florian, were there enough thumbs up to do your demo?
There were more thumbs up than crying emojis. So I'll
I
take
saw a couple of different emojis from Aldous, but
and again, this is more to showcase what's possible than to push any one particular technology. But let me see. And I'll keep the pitching to a minimum. But so think, we were talking about different locations. So you'll want to have visibility for all your robots across locations, and then be able to kind of like zoom in and get information about particular sites, and then have visibility across your whole fleet. But then jumping to the interaction part, one of the things is if you have moving robots, you need to be able to put them all on the same map. So you need to. So here, what we have is different robots from different vendors. We actually have, I'll show you in a minute, but we have a relay like the one that, I'll send it to the front. And then like Christian mentioned Savioke, the previous name. The new name is Relay. So we have integrations with cameras, right? So you can see the little relay robot going about its job, and then you can see here something called it's an ASRS. So Okedo, you know a little bit about this. This is a different one from yours, from a startup here called InStock. But it's basically a goods-to-person system. And what we're able to do that's a little bit more interesting, besides having my coworker running around, not sure why. We wanted to show like an interaction between two different robots. So what we have here in the, think of this as the back of the space. You can barely see it, but that's a Auto 100. Auto is now part of Rockwell, as you know, and it has a bin on it. So I think, in this case, I'm just going to do it from my phone for effect, but I can send that robot to start a restock. Normally, this would be done by the operator, the person loading the bin on the robot and saying, okay, this bin is ready to be decanted. So basically, what you're trying to do is get product into that grid of the ASRS. And normally, the more perhaps standard way of doing that is to have, use the workstations where people do picking and essentially run them in reverse, right? So where you're manually putting things in bins. In this case, you'll be able to see this is the perspective from the robot's point of view. If I switch to the grid view, let me see if the cameras come up on time, so we don't miss it. Well, you can see that the robot is getting inside the grid. And then, so the bin is sitting on the robot. Ideally, you would not have someone adjusting the bin like my colleague just did. And then this has these robots that can run on the ceiling or on the floor. So you'll see a robot coming in, and then it will pick up the bin. Right. So I think the reason we show this is we had these two completely different companies. They don't even know about each other. They don't need to talk to each other. You just need to orchestrate so that the robot with the bin goes to the right place, and then you basically trigger the pick. or it's not a pick from a end user perspective, but you trigger the decanting process, right? And now that bin that used to be on top of the AMR is now inside the grid and ready for picking.
Question here. This was really interesting what just happened, right? Because how do you know how the picking works? Because is it, and I mean the sort of fine-grained position control, right? Because the in stock whatever machine there does not control the robot or vice versa. Do you know, is the in stock just so flexible that it has some tolerance as to picking something even when it's not precisely in the right location, or do they do some sort of coordination?
So there's a little bit of coordination, but I think the credit goes to the in-stock system primarily, that it's built to allow for some tolerance around positioning. But I think the main point I was trying to make is, if you have in-stock talking to auto, the way we talked about it before, right? Then if you then want to use a different AMR, right? So we have 4 different AMRs with a flatbed on top, right? This one, the auto has a built-in lift, which is actually needed to adjust the height for optimal grabbing of the bin, right? So it has some native capabilities that make it well suited for this. But in theory, you could swap it out for another robot. Like if a different deployment has, they already use, Mir or Thera, or, there's a lot of these flatbed AMRs. You don't need to redo everything. You don't need to recreate that. You're avoiding the n squared integrations in this case.
Florian, if I as an end user or an integrator, I should say, want to tie all this together, and this is something I'll open up. I don't want to be in orbit specific, but Aldous and Christian as well. Am I looking more at individual writing my own wrappers around APIs? Am I looking at trying to install agents on these robots? How much off-the-shelf development am I doing right now, and how much am I using off-the-shelf tools, and how much am I writing custom code to wrap around these various other vendors?
If you like, I can answer for how
Frederick, your microphone is working now. But I'm gonna, there. Sorry, go ahead, Florian.
I'll pass it over to you, Frederick, if you want to contribute. I think there's 2 sides. There's the at least I'll speak for In-Orbit for a minute here. There's the, how does the system talk to your robot, right? And that's a one-off integration. If you have APIs, there's lots of different mechanisms to talk to it. There's emerging standards for that. We talked about VDA. There's others in the works. But most of it is proprietary, right? So you need that first level, is that first integration. And ideally, like for example, if an SI wanted to use auto, hey, there's already an existing integration. So 0 work at that point, right? Then I think there's the putting all the pieces together. And our whole approach is you should be able to do that using, I'm going to call it modern software techniques, as opposed to, plugging things with wires and writing code to your PLC. And the advantage there, and I know Aldous and Christian follow similar approaches, which is you should be able to define things in a modern programming language, define the behavior that you want, and then have the system execute that. For us, that's called missions, right? So you can define a mission. The mission can have different steps, different actors, like different robots, different integration points and handovers. But it's actually not that hard, right? It's like, 10 lines of code to actually do what you just saw before. So I think it allows you to iterate a lot faster. It does require maybe a reskilling of systems integrators from the traditional kind of like, I'll measure everything with tape to kind of like, I'll write some software and then we'll iterate on it.
Cool.
I'll pass it over to Aldous maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say, any last thoughts, Christian? Aldous, a couple minutes left.
Yeah, I was can add in from our side. We looked at a list of all the type of actions that the various robots on the market can do, and we just say, okay, we're never going to complete this list internally. So we went for that independence kind of approach of, all right, enable the tools that you can set up the actions, which then any kind of action that a robot can do that we don't know yet, that appears on the market, can be performed. There is a degree that we hope for standardization of this to make it really easy for not just ourselves, but also for the end users and the integrators. But yeah, without knowing the full sort of commands and topics, it can be quite difficult. And going back to the standardization or the interoperability parts, like if it goes back to if the provider of the robot can or is willing to work with other systems on the market, or if they're going to be closing off.
Cool. Christian, anything from you before I wrap it up here?
Well, so actually, I get that question sometimes, but we work slightly differently in that we sell we are a solution to robotics vendors themselves, not so much to integrators. And so our customers, our users have full access to the robots that they work with. And so if they want to make it do, any sort of song and dance, they know how to do that. And if they want to trigger it through transitive, they can. But yeah, so we don't typically run into that problem. And then the level at which we operate, we try to stay. We're sort of at the software side, right? And in software world, there's a lot of standards that you can rely on, right? There's obviously a lot of Linux standards, for instance, for talking to cameras. There's lots of ways to consume video streams, RTSP streams, and video for Linux and so forth. And then, of course, there's ROS, right? So a lot of our users are very keen on, well, they do use ROS, and then they're keen on using it in more fashions than others. But yeah, fortunately, we don't have to deal with this problem very much.
All right, great. Well, we got 4 minutes left, and we always have a little bit of housekeeping at the end. First, open the floor if anybody is hiring or looking to be hired. This is a venue we like to hopefully make those connections and allow the network to grow. So I'll pause for a moment. If you are hiring, let us know. If you are looking for a job, let the group know. Aldous.
We aren't directly hiring at the moment, but we are looking for talents located in the US, mainly business development side. So if you have any profiles who are looking to get involved on project leading and running sales on the continent or in North America, essentially, we'd be really happy to be connected.
Right. Nicholas?
Yeah, we actually have a few positions at Omnicell that are currently open and available. I think Omnicell generally gets looked at as a healthcare company, right? But working toward that autonomous pharmacy vision, we're trying to level up, right, and have more people with robotics experience. And so there are not a lot of people in robotics that are looking at Omnicell, but there's plenty of positions open that require people with that experience and background. So
Cool. Anybody else? All right. Housekeeping wise, we go ahead, Florian.
Sorry, I had. We are hiring on the marketing side. So if you have If you're interested, or you know someone in your network who is interested in working on marketing and helping explain to people all of this complexity in simple terms, I think that's an open position. Switching gears, I also wanted to have a public service announcement that we, especially for people who are joining us today for the first time or after a long break, we are organizing RobopsCon 2024. We did have the conference in 2022. We're hoping to do it every 2 years. We have a date, October 15th, 2024. We have a location, which is in the Bay Area. So hopefully there will be opportunities for us to meet in person. If you're local, or if you can arrange travel to coincide. It's specifically designed to be just before our conference called Robo Business that some people attend. So you could attend both for the price of one. Not really, but
as far as travel goes,
yes.
And another hotel night.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Yep. All right. That was one of my housekeeping announcements as well. So thank you, Florian. The other is less sexy. We are looking for sponsorship for ROG. So if your company is interested in being an annual sponsor, a founding sponsor, of which InOrbit is, a RobopsCon sponsor, of which I see Rory on the line, Romeric was a generous sponsor of RobopsCon back in 2022. Reach out to me, either email joe@robotoperationsgroup.org, or on LinkedIn, or Carrier Pigeon, or however else. So if your company wants to have their name splashed on our website, along with the videos, which I swear will be posted in the next couple of weeks, please reach out to Florian or me, and we'll get the ball rolling on that. Got a lot of tiers and options available, and it helps us keep these meetings running, pay taxes to keep ROG legal, and host those videos and the RobopsCon as well. So thank you if you're interested. All right, everybody, I know it's been a handful of months. Our apologies for the delay getting this on the calendar. Hopefully we can get back to our normal bi-monthly schedule, and look forward to seeing everybody next time. Any last thoughts? Great. All right, thanks everybody. We'll talk soon. Appreciate it.
So yeah.
Thank you.